talking about what makes you successful in life, relationships, and business. It's Jump, Pivot, and Roll with Shannon Stiles and Rachel Murphy.
What if you could live in peace, regardless of what's going on around you? No matter what adversity you faced, you can move through it calmly, not allowing your feelings to override your thought process and avoiding being nervous or angry or any other emotions that came along, and be free from the emotional effects it could have on you. Well, we have some tips for you today to help accomplish this. Welcome to Jump, Pivot, and Roll. I'm Shannon Stiles.
And I'm Rachel Murphy.
Rachel, I think that if someone is trying to find their calm, I would recommend that they do a self-evaluation to see what brings them inner peace. So for me, it would be God. My go-to is when I want to find that calm, inner peace, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it takes me right back to that because I know at that point I can hand over anything that's giving me anxiety or fear or any of the emotions that we want to avoid. I know that as soon as I turn it over to God's inbox, those thoughts are gone. What if you were to do a self-evaluation and look for what brings you inner peace, what would it be?
That's a really good question. I mean, of course, my faith and my family, but I kind of handle it different, Shannon. When I'm at that moment that either the craziness has just gotten to be too much, I do one of two things.
Okay.
One, I take off my shoes and I go sit outside. And I feel the grass under my feet and I just breathe. I sit in the sunshine and I just breathe and just take in the wind around me and the leaves moving or, watching the silly chickens move around. And I make myself stop and I allow myself to be in that moment and that moment only. And everything else just gets to disappear for a little bit.
Right.
Because it allows me to refocus. It allows me to take some time to look at things as they really are, not as how they're appearing to be. Or I do absolutely the opposite, and I go take a really hot shower, and I just cry until I let all the emotions of whatever it is, fear, overwhelm, depression, joy, because sometimes, that causes tears too. But it's just like my body is on overload and I'm not finding peace. And so I just cry until the tears stop.
And, you bring up a good point that it's okay to embrace the emotions at times, but it's also very dangerous.
I disagree.
If you don't have... Can I finish?
You can, but I disagree.
You can't disagree with me until I finish my statement. Hello?
We'll see.
No, you can't. So, back to where I was saying. I said I think it's very dangerous if you don't have an exit plan. Because it's very easy to get caught in the emotion and get caught up in the darkness that comes with that. But if you go into it with in a healthy manner, and you go into it saying, you know what, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes or a day or a week or whatever your timeline is, 30 seconds, I don't care what it is. But if you go into it with this timeline saying, okay, I'm going to allow myself just to have all of those horrible thoughts and set a timer, right? And just let it go through me and process it. And then I'm going to say enough is enough. I've had my moment and I'm moving on.
Okay. So you set a timer. I'm still going to disagree because I think so much of what society teaches us is we're not allowed to feel that. And we have to have 100% time limit. Like you're allowed to be angry, but you're only allowed to be angry for 5 minutes. Well, what if 5 minutes isn't enough for you to walk through the process? And when you're in the middle of the process, how are you supposed to figure out that 5 minutes is it? Sometimes it's going to take longer. So I think, and this is why I disagree, I think that it's really important that we find our way to do it. I think that way works great for you because you have those tools in your toolbox that allow you to do that. Sometimes I've seen where you're like, okay, 5 minutes, but a couple hours later,
that's what
you're still reeling from it.
That's what I was going to say. There are times that I get caught up in it, and I mean, we had that here recently.
I
couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake it. It was so personal. It hurt so bad. I just could not let it go. However, I had in the forefront of my mind the whole time, okay, just feel it, but you have to let it go. And I think that in order to do this in a healthy manner, I think you have to do that, Rachel. Otherwise, you will get swollen up. And before you know it, you're so far down in the dark, you don't see the light at all. We're here talking about tips of how to find that calm and how to make it through it. I think that has to be in the equation. Otherwise, it's too easy to let those thoughts take over. I mean, when you get to that dark place, if you don't have some type of way to keep you on path to doing it healthy, it's too easy to think the world would be better off without me.
Well,
it's too easy to let those thoughts come in.
I think also it's having some different tools in your toolbox. You've shared one, I shared two, and I think what it is making sure that you have some tools in your toolbox to pull you out. Because for some people, a timeline may not work as well as going and sitting out in nature. A timeline may not work as well as going and exercising. Like I know some people who will go and they just give it their all at the gym. That would not be my thing.
Okay, let me give you a scenario. Okay. I love my husband with all my heart and soul.
Yes, you do.
I want nothing in the world to happen to my husband, ever.
Right.
But I've had this conversation with him. If something were to happen to him, I would allow myself time to mourn. I would allow myself time, for the rest of my life, I would miss him.
Sure.
I would probably never get over the loss of my love for him. But I would go into it telling myself, you're not going to stop living because he is no longer here.
Well, yeah.
That's the timeline I'm talking about. I don't care how long it takes, but I care that there's an exit plan from that thought process. And that's what I'm talking about.
I understand that, but I think that sometimes saying, as I enter this traumatic storm, as I enter this traumatic period in my life, I'm giving myself, Danelle Delgado said 7 minutes. You are allowed 7 minutes to go through whatever. That's her system. That was her advice. I think that for some people, that works. But I think that when you're going through that, you don't always have a timeline. And again, I think that's why it's so important that you have tools in your toolbox that work for you so that that can also be your exit system without it being a timed thing. If Scott were to die,
you're missing my point.
I
It's
think
not
you're
about
missing mine.
Okay, so you talk first. I'll hear you out, and then you listen to me because mine's not about picking a time. It's about knowing that I'm not going to stop looking at this. I'm going to let that light come through, and I'm going to, as quickly as I possibly can make it, get to a point where I see the light, and I'm not allowing myself to be here.
Stay there.
To stay here.
Right. I'm making the same point, is that those are having tools that work for you. And so I think that the way that you handle it best is you create for yourself your timeline. That is one of your tools. That is your exit plan. My exit plan is that hot shower or sitting in nature or some of the other things that we're going to talk about.
Okay, so when you sit in nature or you take that hot shower and that doesn't do it for you, how do you keep from getting into the dark?
Well, and I think those are the tools that we talk about. It's not just having one tool, it's having multiple tools. Because let's take Scott again, for example, or my husband. Can you tell me how long you think it would take to mourn the loss of losing your husband for you to not be over it? Because how do you ever get over losing your love? But to turn around and say, okay, this is done. Now I'm moving to here. What time frame would you give?
I think I definitely put a time frame on it. I don't know if it's 2 years, 5 years. I don't know what that number is, but I would want to tell myself it's okay. It's okay to live your life.
It's
okay to move
100%
on.
necessary.
And if I don't have that in my mind, and I think a lot of people are like this, if we don't focus, where focus goes, energy flows. If we don't focus on how to get out of it, we can get stuck in the darkness of it. We can get stuck in the loss, and we can lose our life as well.
Oh, 100%.
That is my point.
Well, and I'm not disagreeing with that point.
Okay, let's move on. What is your next recommendation?
So the next one for me is to be around people who support you and who love you and make you laugh. Go and hang out with your girlfriends or go do something that you would enjoy doing. You know, take some time to do some self-care, but not necessarily alone, because sometimes when we have those people around us who can make fun of us or make us laugh or just get us out of that funk, that is enough. One of the things with depression that I know that I do, because this is something I have suffered with for a very long time in my life, is I like to hide in my little hidey hole, like a little mole, you know, poking my nose out just to kind of see what's going around. But I will hide in my hidey hole. And one of the best things that can happen is that Shannon or other people make me leave my house, make me leave that safe space and go be around where life is happening and people are experiencing, and there's laughter and joy and good food, not staying where it's safe to be in the dark.
Yeah, and you know, humor, I agree with you 100%. Humor is something that even if you want to be in that dark, humor helps to bring you out of the dark.
Yeah.
And let's face it, sometimes people want to be, that's the problem, okay? That's the problem that we have, and a lot of times we don't face this, is that sometimes it's just a choice.
It is.
Because we're so used to being in that place that it's comfortable in an odd kind of way.
No, it's very comfortable. It is, you know, for people who suffer with depression, and let's be honest, everything that's going on right now, people are losing their jobs, divorce rates are up, abuse rates are up, politically things are insane. You know, there is so much stuff coming at us. It's like this huge cyclone of all these different things, and they're coming from all these different areas. Parents struggling with, how do I help my kids be successful in school while I'm working and they either have to be home or be at school all day, not being able to do what they normally do. We have all these things coming at us, and it is very easy, I think, right now in this situation and in this environment to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Very easy to feel that right now. and very easy to get bogged down in it. And so, that's the reason why we want to make sure that you have these tools. But I have to ask Shannon, if you've ever been in a really bad mood and everybody around you is laughing and joking, do you not start to see yourself like crack a little bit of a smile? And just like, how do you stay angry when that true happy energy is around you? I can't.
It depends. I mean, sometimes, when I'm around someone who has gone through something or is in that frame of mind that they need to find their calm, sometimes if I throw a joke out there, I'll follow it with too soon. Right?
But that's great humor.
But there is such a thing as too soon also.
There is, but you know what? The thing is that to me in that, you're testing the waters.
Yeah.
You're bringing some lightness into it. And then you're also respecting that maybe it's too early, but honestly, that in itself, the too soon, would make me smile probably even more than the joke.
Right. No, and I agree. I think humor is probably one of the most effective ways. However, it should be approached in a very
respectful
and appropriate manner, right?
I agree. But let's look at Tony, right? One of our mentors who we love, Tony Robbins. We have both been at his conferences, and you've got to expect some saucy language. He's going to throw the F word out there. He's going to throw things out there that take you off of your game. So he pulls you out of that, whatever it is. Because when you're working with him, he can take you down some dark tunnels because he wants
that.
His same here. But he's not going to leave you there.
Right. So one of the things when you mentioned Tony, it kind of brings up another good point is to see things as they are, not worse than, right?
Right.
And what I mean by that is when I was at one of his events, there was someone who was talking about a relationship that they just couldn't forgive the individual. And he said, why? Well, because she stabbed me in the back. Really? I've always wanted to see a stab wound. Can you show me? And she's like, what do you mean? Well, I want to see where the knife went in. Can you show me that? She's like, well, no, she didn't really stab me in the back. Okay, what do you mean? So that's another way to calm yourself is to, really watch the words that you use and the way that we use those words. Because if we say, she's always stabbing me in the back and well, hold on, that's pretty deathly, right? That's horrible. But if what it is, well, sometimes she's out there and she makes choices that I wish she wouldn't make, and she changes our plans on us. Well, that's not really the end of the world, right? You're not going to bleed. You're not going to bleed to death because she did that. Your life isn't going to end because she did that. But if she stabs you in the back, it might ruin your life, right?
Yeah.
So just by doing that and going through that simple process, you kind of show someone, okay, I'm making this much bigger in my mind.
Right.
I'm making this out to be something that it just really isn't.
Right.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. You're listening to Jump, Pivot, and Roll with Shannon Stiles
and Rachel Murphy.
We'll be back in just a moment.
The Jump, Pivot, and Roll podcast is brought to you in part by the Shannon Stiles Allstate Insurance Agency. Just as you take that next step in life, you need to take that next step in protecting yourself, your car, your home, and your family. Reach out to Shannon at 316-773-9864 or shoot her an email at sstiles@allstate.com. Also by Simplify My Life ICT. Is your life cluttered? Do you need help with organization? Rachel Murphy can help. Check out Rachel's services online at simplifymylifeict.com or reach out to Rachel at simplifymylifeict@gmail.com. To keep up with the Jump, Pivot, and Roll podcast, make sure to follow them on their Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/Jump, Pivot, and Roll. There you can find content, podcasts of the show, discussions with Rachel and Shannon, and more. Plus, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on any of your favorite podcasting sites, from iTunes and Spotify, Google Play to TuneIn, and right on their Podbean site at jumppivotandroll.podbean.com. And for all the exclusive content, make sure to become a VIP member on their Patreon site. Just go to patreon.com/Jump, Pivot, and Roll.
And welcome back to Jump, Pivot, and Roll. I'm Shannon Stiles.
And I'm Rachel Murphy.
And we are talking about how to find your calm. And if you heard the beginning of the podcast, you will realize that Rachel and I didn't agree on everything. Shock. But there were a couple of things we did agree on.
Yes.
But I think that the principles that we're sharing with you, we basically agree on those principles. And I think this next one would be something that she would agree with.
Okay, go.
Meditate.
Oh, absolutely.
Take a moment to, and if you don't know how to meditate, that's okay. Just basically stop and focus on your breath. Focus on your breathing. Take deep, relaxing breaths. And what it does is it calms your psyche.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to evaluate what's really going on, but you have to, when you meditate, what your whole goal is to hush the mind. And when you hush the mind and you've got something that's really bothering you going on, when you can stop that little voice inside of your head from telling you all these negative things and pointing out all these negative things, and you find that calm through meditation, then when you move forward, you allow yourself the opportunity to bring in some light and to bring in some positive things.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly when I say that I go sit outside and I take my shoes off and I just feel the air around me and I just take that moment. That is my meditation. That is, sometimes I close my eyes and sometimes I just concentrate on Mother Nature and what's going on around me. But what it does is it takes my focus off of all that negative and overwhelm that I'm thinking about and just allows me to be in that moment. So absolutely, meditation is a game changer. Eyes open, eyes closed, but it's the breathing like Shannon talked about. It's just that quieting, that inner stuff that's going on and allow you to be emotionally still.
You want to share one? Or is it on
Sure.
to me? Because I got more.
I think it's meeting people where they're at. I think so often we get lost in the overwhelm because of our expectations of somebody else's actions, our expectations of how a situation's going to play out. And I will tell you, for me, I used to be horrible at this because I would do something or say something and I would expect that this is the way the movie's going to play out.
Yeah.
And everybody had their parts and everybody had their script and this is how it was going to be. The only problem is I didn't give anybody a script. The script was all in my head. So when it didn't play out the way that I thought, nobody else could really win. Nobody else, I mean, it was a lose-lose type situation. And when I finally learned how to limit those expectations and just allow people to be where they are and love them regardless of that and accept them regardless of that, I freed myself, not only them.
I agree. And that's something very hard to do because we're always thinking about ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard. You have to step away from some ego, which is not easy, especially for strong-willed women like
I agree.
we are.
I agree. And we will get to that podcast, the ego. So another thing that I like to do is I like to take a trip, 2 trips, one to the past and one to the future. And when I go back to the past, I look for, because almost every situation that we get into, we've been there before, right?
Good point.
And when I go back to the past, I like to look at that situation, how I acted during that situation, if I responded or, what my actions were, and how the outcome was. And I also like taking a trip to the future. And it could be a month from now, it could be a year from now, it could be a decade from now. It doesn't matter how long, but I take that situation into the future, and I take my choices that I have. I can sit here in misery, or I can be a victor, or I can be victorious, right? And I play out each one of those in my mind in the future, and I look and see what the result will be in the future. And when I see that, it then motivates me to find that calm. It motivates me to make the choices that will make that future look better.
That's great, Shannon.
Thank you.
That's really, really good. That's a tool I need to put in my toolbox for sure.
Yay!
Yeah.
It works though, especially when you take a trip to the past. And let me give you an example. So let's say that you're facing, which this is something that a lot of people are facing, hardships right now, and a lot of people have lost their jobs. I mean, it's something that we continue to face. So let's say that maybe you're facing a situation where your economics are not where they should be, and you've been hurt a little bit, and you're having trouble finding the path, right? And you're worried. I mean, you might be worried about the lights going out. You might be worried about buying food. You might be worried. You might own a business, and you might be worried about how are you going to make payroll. Been there, done that, right?
Right.
And you can sit there and you can worry until you just can't worry anymore. You make yourself sick physically.
Right.
Or you can look back to the past and you can go, okay, this hasn't been the first time I've been here. Last time I was here, the money just mysteriously appeared, right? I mean, if you think about a time, and I want everybody to take a moment and think about a time that you were in a hardship. And I'm sure everybody listening today, the money just appeared somehow. You had no clue it could have come from that. Maybe you just got a check in the mail, or maybe a friend gave it to you, or whatever happened, right? It just came to you. Now, I want you to think about that situation today that you're worrying about. And know that if it could happen to you in the past, it could just work itself out in the future also.
Oh, sure.
That is such a powerful tool.
That is.
To be able to look at your own life and see how it worked itself out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever left something without a new opportunity presenting itself, and being something even better than I could have imagined in that moment of pain or loss or frustration or overwhelm, whatever it is. Yeah. So I think that's really good. So here's my next one.
Yes.
Is admit to yourself that you are angry or anxious.
Oh, definitely.
Verbalizing this allows you to see it. And it's no longer just boiling inside. I've had instances with my mister, as I'm sure many of us have who are in relationships, where I've just said to him, I am angry right now. I am upset, and I need a moment to just be in this. So it's nothing you've done. I just need you to let me be, or it is something you've done, but I can't talk to you about it right now because I'm not seeing clearly through my anger to resolve it. And you allow yourself to feel the anger or the anxiousness, and you put a name on it so that it's identifiable and you can actually deal with it.
Yeah, I practice this as well. And my husband knows when I say, I love you, but I sure don't like you right now. He knows that means you need to back off and give me a few moments because I'm mad. I'm whatever it might be, right?
Right.
I'm disappointed.
Right.
There are a plethora of emotions that I could be feeling. But he knows at that moment when I say that, it's pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to absorb that feeling, and I have to just be in it for the moment. And he knows, give her a couple minutes and she'll be back out and everything will be fine.
Right. And it's, I want to address to the listeners because there are some of those situations where something needs to be resolved.
Right.
There's a conflict and something needs to be resolved. Maybe it's a respect thing or a money thing or whatever it is. It is okay to put a flag in something and walk away from it while you gather your senses, while you work and process yourself through it. Just pushing it down and saying, I'm not having these feelings are what cause us to have major depression and major anxiety and major anger issues. So it's okay to put that flag in there and say, I'm going to come back, just like Shannon was saying, and we'll deal with this in a little bit. But right now is not the time.
Yeah, and it's very healthy to do that because trust me, especially with me, because once I get there, if you keep talking, you are adding fuel to the fire because I am an analytical person. I do have to process. I do have to feel the emotions. And if you try to skip that step, heaven forbid.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Now, this is one of my favorite ones.
Okay.
And that is, and sometimes it's really, really hard to do in the moment, but it does help me get through things, especially with some of my family problems. And this is one that I've really utilized and it's helped here recently. And that is take a moment to ask yourself, can you tell I love asking myself questions?
You
right?
do. Yeah.
I do. I love to ask myself good questions. And the question that I've been asking lately is, how can this work for me instead of to me? How can this come out? How can this be something that God can turn into a blessing for me or others? And when I do that, Rachel, it's pretty incredible because, did I say that right? I don't know why. Words aren't sounding right to me when I'm talking.
You said that right.
Thank you. So when I do that, what happens is it takes my mind off of the focus of what is happening to how it can become a blessing, how it can help others, how it can help myself, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome to do that.
Yeah.
I love that tool.
Yeah, I was actually going to share the same one. It's changing your thoughts. It's looking at it differently. We talk a lot about not being a victim, but being a victor. And sometimes we have situations happen in our lives that we had no responsibility in them going that way.
Right.
And we are in that moment not in control, but changing our thoughts just the way you were talking about, Shannon, that gives you control. And regardless of what's going on, it allows you to be a victor in that situation.
Yeah, and I want to take it just a little bit further because it has to do with my faith, right? Mm-hmm. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And what it does, it's beautiful. What it does is it reminds me of my purpose. And sometimes being in that hard and being in that pit is necessary in order to live out your purpose, because you have to be able to make it through that in order to help people the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the next one that I would say especially after what Shannon just shared, is visualize yourself being calm. Close your eyes and see your body relax. See your shoulders relax. Look at when you're angry, when you're anxious, when you're feeling overwhelmed. What is your body language? What is your body saying to you? And take a moment and make yourself intentionally relax. Move your head around and relax your shoulders and unclench your hands, because all those things tell the body, be anxious, be angry. And so when you start to relax those and you start seeing those different parts of your body relax and you visualize that, you physically do it.
Yeah, so you're saying visualize, but I'm taking it to the next level.
Okay.
Of changing your state, right?
Well,
so when you think of someone in a depression, where's their head?
Well, down.
How's their breathing?
Very slow.
How's their talk? How's their speech pattern?
Slow again.
Right. So when we change this and we stand upright and we put our head upright, I mean, just the simple fact of visualizing it and then doing that and changing your state to a strong position, you can't be wimpy when you're in a power pose, right?
Right.
You can't do it.
Right.
It's like physically impossible.
Right. But she's talking about depression. What I'm talking about is when you're in anger and
anything.
Well, but with anger, Shannon, I think it's very important that, because usually we're tight. We are tight.
So
our shoulders
change
are back.
You change your state to be
you change
relaxed.
your state to be relaxed.
Right.
You start to envision what that looks like, and then you physically start to follow that.
So if you're feeling weak, you would stand up in that power pose, right?
Absolutely. Superwoman.
And every single emotion that you can have, if you're afraid, you start taking steps forward and you like physically do it, right? That's changing your state.
Right.
And that looks different, like you just said, in every situation.
Right. Right. What's your next one, Shan?
That was mine. Change your state.
Oh, okay.
That
was hers. All right.
I've
and
got
then
another
I
one.
think, okay, go ahead.
I always have another one. So I think another one is exercise. You mentioned going out in your garden and when you're exercising, if you can do it outside, there's something very, very calming to nature.
Yes.
But there's also something very calming to exercise, because your endorphins get moving, and
right.
It naturally calms you. So I think exercise is a great idea at that.
It is.
But do it with, I'm going to take it a step further and maybe put on some headsets and put on the sound of the beach, or put on birds, right? I mean, you can go to YouTube and you can get sounds, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Put on some type of calming sound, maybe some wind chimes, right? And while you're exercising or while you're taking your moment, just let that calm your brain.
Yeah.
Because it works. Classical music is great. Classical music, I don't know if you guys listen to classical music ever, but it is really, really incredible. Think about, do you ever listen to hard rock, heavy metal?
No.
Okay, so anytime I listen to heavy metal, I have tried to train myself. I cannot drive when I'm listening to heavy metal.
Because she already has a problem with speeding.
My foot is heavy enough. If I'm listening to heavy metal, I just want to go fast and it gets me going. Now, heavy metal is a great, great tool if I want to get, like, when the kids would get ready to play a ball game, I wanted them ramped up. I wanted them given them their all. So I'd play some heavy metal. But when you're already ramped up, you want to go the opposite, right? Go to the other end of that spectrum and play something soothing like Beethoven. Do you know how amazing it is to listen to classical music and how creative you can get while doing so?
Absolutely. It's
I never
one of
realized
those
it.
things that when you are in that think tank, having some classical music in the background can be huge. And it's so funny that you went to this one, because this was my next one, was to listen to music. And, for depending on what's going on, for me, when I go to K-Love, that's the music that takes me where I need to be. But my husband is major classical music lover, so it plays, in our home. It goes, but it's finding that music that moves you to that calm place, that either reassures you or just calms you down, because there is something about the gift of music that moves us in whichever direction, like you were saying, that we need to go. So that is definitely a tool to have in your toolbox.
If it's really, really bad and I need to calm down, like it's going to take a lot for me to calm down, I do a little project.
Do tell.
I'll put together water bottles and blankets, and I'll put together little packages, and I'll go out and I'll search for a homeless, or I'll search for someone that needs my help, something that I can give them help, right? Maybe it's a single mother or father that is struggling a little bit, and I just pack up all of my extra food and I take it over and I say, you know what? You were on my heart and I wanted to give this to you. Now, I know that sounds bad, guys, and it's a little self-serving, me doing that. But when you volunteer or you're charitable or, you give to others, it takes you out of your own mind and it takes you out of your own problems.
Absolutely.
And it helps you to find that calm.
Yeah.
When you find the love, and that's my final one. I'll wrap mine up.
Okay.
While I'm on this. When you find unconditional love for whatever the situation is, and sometimes, you guys, that means finding unconditional love towards yourself. Maybe it's others. Sometimes it's yourself. But when you give grace and unconditional love, you find peace. And
absolutely.
That, for me, the grace part of this is a game changer.
That's beautiful.
Because when I'm affording someone grace, I am allowing them. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm thinking the best of them, and I'm giving them not an excuse, but I'm putting myself in a position to look at the situation through their eyes. And it's game-changing.
That's
Game-changing.
great. So my last one is to write it down. This can be such a game changer when you're mad at somebody or frustrated with something or scared to death about the situation that we're in. Take pen to paper and write it all down. And why do you do that? Because you're getting it out. You're verbalizing it. You're recognizing it. And here's the thing that we want you guys to realize and walk away with is that when we recognize things, when we address them and we don't shove them down, we gain freedom over them. We gain power over them. We gain strength over them. And now you're no longer powerless, because I think so much of the anxiety and the fear that happens that takes away our calm is because we feel like we have no power.
And you are so right, because the worst thing you could possibly do when you're in a situation like that is to sweep it under the rug.
Yep.
Because what's going to happen is all that shit that you're sweeping under the rug is it's going to come to a point where it's so visibly noticeable to anyone that comes in.
Yep.
Maybe not to you because you've like blocked it out, but it's so visibly noticeable that it's going to explode and it's going to cause major disruption in your life at some point.
Absolutely. It's going to take its toll physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. Some way you are going to pay a price. And so addressing it and not letting it get to that blow up point is going to always give you power. So my challenge today is please pick one of those tools that we shared that you do not have in your toolbox and figure out how you can use that tool the next time you run into one of those situations. Because the more tools we have that allow us to live and deal with this wonderful, crazy thing called life, the stronger and more powerful we are. And that's what we really want to leave with you guys today, is giving you back that power over that storm, helping you have the calm in the eye of your personal storm.
And you know what? I lied. I have one more.
Okay.
See what you do have control over and take action there. Because hardly ever is there a time where we have absolutely zero control over a situation. Even if someone else is doing something that's bothering you, you still have control over the way you respond or react. So focus on that and make a positive move in that area. You know, life doesn't always come with directions. Sometimes you have to jump, pivot, and roll. If you like today's podcast, please share it out. Even if you didn't like it, share it out, because there might be somebody out there who needs to hear what we've said and who just needs that little bit of light to come through, shine through in order to make a difference in their life. Thank you so much for your support. We love your reviews. Thank you for leaving reviews. And until next week, have a great week, everybody.
Bye, guys.